So it's been about a year since I bought my KTM RC 390, and I just thought I'd make an update video on my experience with the bike so far. I did make a riding video as soon as I got the bike with my first impressions, and just wanted to kind of let you know how that year has gone by. Obviously, the bike has changed quite a bit in the last year, so that's why, it's not even street legal anymore. That's why I'm kind of standing here awkwardly in front of the camera instead of another riding video. But anyway, let me show you around the bike. So if you want to know kind of what I think overall about the bike, if you're a new street rider or a new track rider like me, this motorcycle I think is amazing. It's super easy to ride. It's very forgiving. Nothing scary about it. All the controls are very light and easy to use. Like even the clutch lever, it's like a one finger deal. So nothing is intimidating about it at all. Still fast enough to go on the highway. So, it'll do 70, 80 miles an hour without any issues, but it doesn't feel scary while doing it. The stock riding position with the stock pegs is comfortable enough on the street, but it's also aggressive enough on the track that it's a great starting point. Same with the suspension and the brakes. I've done about 7 track days so far on this, and I haven't felt the need to upgrade the suspension or the brakes quite yet. So it's just a great starting platform where I don't feel like you need to spend a ton of money, unlike what I did, to actually, have a good experience on it. There are some downsides, but I'll get to that later. Let me just kind of show you around the bike so far. I'm just going to kind of show you all the modifications that I've done in the order that I did it and let you know if I thought it was worth it or not. So the first thing that I do on pretty much any bike is bike protection. So I've done the KTM front axle sliders as well as the T-Rex Racing frame sliders. I haven't had to use them yet, knock on wood, but I think it's just a good idea to have, and both of these fit on pretty well. No issues with fairing clearance, even with these aftermarket fairings. And then, of course, axle bobbins, or whatever you want to call them, swing-on bobbins. These were like $15 off of Amazon, and I really think that they're necessary for any sort of bike maintenance, so they went on immediately. The next mod that I did were these tech spec tank grips. I think these are very important for the track. Otherwise, you're going to be kind of sliding around all over the place without being able to put your knees in a kind of stable position. Unfortunately, this one is starting to wear out a little bit, but I'm going to chalk that up to being my fault instead of the product's fault. So definitely would still recommend these. And I think the fitment was great as well. I'll probably be replacing this for the next season anyway, just because of how badly it's peeling. So after that, I did a Fuel X Lite fuel controller that I've got wedged under the seat here. There it is. I just got this because I read that these bikes run a little lean from factory. And so I just thought it might be a good idea to have. I'm not really sure if it makes a huge difference, but I just thought it's better to be safe than sorry. And I kind of feel like the low end throttle response is a little smoother, but maybe that's just placebo. If you have 150 bucks to throw around, I don't think it would hurt, but I'm not sure if this is actually necessary either. The next thing that I did was this Competition Works chamber delete right here. It was about 150 bucks, and I just got it because I wanted to have a little bit louder sound and also get rid of a lot of weight at the same time. I did make an installation video with before and after sound clips, so you can check that out if you want as well. The installation was not too bad, but I did have to drop the full exhaust, including the header, which meant taking off the fairings as well. But I think it was worth it. And I think that in order to fit these aftermarket fairings, that was necessary, but I'll kind of cover that in a few minutes. So the next 2 things that I did kind of at the same time, I think made the biggest change, at least for the track. So I did new tires. I got rid of the stock Continental tires for some Pirelli Supercorsa SC3s, and then got new rear sets right here. So the tires really helped me with confidence in braking and in corners, just because the stock tires were starting to kind of melt a little and get really greasy no matter what tire pressure I was at. So definitely, if you're going to go on track, this is a great idea. But I think, for your first couple of times, especially if you're a new track rider, the stock tires are fine. And if you're a new street rider, just use them till they wear out. The stock tires are fine. The rear sets I got because the stock pegs are actually pretty low, and I started kind of scraping my pegs, which is not a fun feeling on the track. So I went with these Tiger rear sets. These are absolutely beautiful. I really like the machining on them, little bits of carbon fiber as well. They were reasonably priced, around $300, and installation was a little involved. You do have to take off this swing arm pivot bolt here and then kind of balance the entire bike and kind of line everything up and then put it all in. But if you take your time, it's fine. There are a lot of pieces that you have to kind of pay attention to, a lot of spacers and things that the kit comes with, but installation was pretty straightforward. And I find that the aggressive foot position that these rear sets provide really help with being able to move your body around on the bike. I think with my feet higher up, it's a little easier to move my butt side to side. And so I really, really like these Tiger rear sets. Would highly recommend these. One of the other modifications I did was this Duke 390 tire hugger. The stock RC 390 comes with this really big chain guard that makes adjusting the chain, cleaning the chain, putting on your tire, or even adjusting your rear shock right here a lot harder. And I just didn't like the look of it, so I got rid of it. This was only about 20 bucks from KTM, and it bolts into the stock location. So I think this makes the bike look a lot cleaner, and I kind of like the exposed look. However, this may not be legal for racing. You may need a chain guard, so I may have to go back to the stock one if I do want to try racing. But just, you know, if you're not racing, if you're just doing track days or street riding, I think this looks a lot nicer. So then the next modification that I did was the fairings. So this was not the fairings that I originally went with. I went with some headlight delete fairings. So it was just like this little nose piece right here. Kept the stock orange fairings and then had a tail piece, actually this tail piece. And I mainly did that because, well, stock lights are really expensive. It's something like $1,200 to replace all this headlights, the turn signals, tail light, everything if you do crash. So I just figured $300 in repairable fiberglass is a lot cheaper than $1,200 in lights. So I replaced them and then I ended up going with the fairings, but I'll kind of get to that later. Then the next modification that I did kind of at the same time was a little drastic. I did get rid of the kickstand. And now obviously if your bike is ever going to see the street, don't do this. Even if it's a track day bike, probably don't do this. It does make life a little bit harder at the track. You know, if you're coming off the track after a hard session and you're sweating and you're tired, and then you have to kind of get off the bike and balance it while trying to line up your rear stand. It's not the most fun. What I have found is you can get a car jack stand and just rest it on the solid peg here. It won't work on the stock pegs, but on the solid peg, just for long enough to get your bike onto the rear stand. So that's what I'm going to start doing because it is kind of a pain in the butt. In order to remove the kickstand as well, you have to bypass the kickstand safety switch. You can get a plug for it, which is about $30, but I made a video on how to DIY bypass the safety switch by just basically taping a magnet to it. So I just removed the switch, kind of routed it into under the seat right here, and then taped a tiny magnet to it. But you can check out that video if you're interested in doing that yourself. I also switched to GP shift over here just because I found that it really helped with shifting on the track. You know, especially upshifts around a turn, it's a lot easier to just kind of hit the lever down instead of trying to, you know, scoop your foot underneath. And my other bikes are still regular shift for the street, and I haven't really had an issue going back and forth. So I would give it a try, even if you can't convert all your motorcycles to GP. I think it comes pretty quickly. And then finally, I ended up getting the full fairings here. So the reason I didn't go with the full fairings at first and went with just the front and rears was, I mean, the full fairings were like $800. And what I had heard was the stock exhaust does not actually work with the belly pan here because the exhaust would end up hitting, you can see down there. This would kind of rub on the belly pan and potentially burn it or, you know, wear a hole in it. And the, you know, solution is to get a $1,500 exhaust that kind of routes out some other way. And I just felt like that was not what I wanted to do. I didn't want to spend, you know, $2,500 on fairings and then an exhaust and then maybe another $500 on a tune. So that's why I went with just the front and rear deletes. But then one day I was on Facebook and someone was selling this brand new set for a lot less than $800, with the caveat that it was kind of in rough shape. So you can see like it's pretty rough here. There's kind of cracks and all this stuff everywhere. It would need some body work to actually look decent, but for me, I just want them to look like fairings. So I didn't really care, and I just took the gamble on the exhaust issue, you know, for the price. And what I found is, I think because of this, the chamber delete that I mentioned earlier, I think it actually allows the exhaust to clear because as you can see here, I have plenty of room. There's no touching anywhere over here. And I think that's because the exhaust, this chamber delete here kind of pushes the exhaust over that way. And I actually put a little spacer right there that you can see that kind of ensures that the exhaust stays pushed over to the right. And I think that kind of pushes this entire pipe over just a little so that it doesn't touch on this. Because if I do pull that all the way over to the left, this will rub. But that's kind of my workaround for now. I think it should be fine. And I'm actually going to try it out on track tomorrow to see if my fairings hold up. But yeah, that's basically everything that I've done to the bike. It's come a long way in 1 year. I basically did 2 track days on the motorcycle and just realized like I just love riding it on the track. And so much so that I would rather just not ride it on the street because I have other bikes. So it's been a blast. I don't regret it for an instant, going with this tiny bike instead of like a 600 or 1,000. I feel like I've progressed quite a bit in the past 7, 8 track days, but I also feel like there's just so much more to learn on this motorcycle that I am not even thinking about upgrading anytime soon. But there's a couple things that I don't like about this motorcycle. And number one is my biggest pet peeve. Whoever designed this engine, that it needs to be warmed up and run and then shut off for about a minute before you can check your oil at all. I don't know what they were thinking. Like, that is probably the dumbest decision I've ever seen. Just because, number one, you can't just idle the bike to warm it up. You have to make sure that everything's really warm, like actually riding the motorcycle and shifting up and down the gears. Just idling it won't help, because I've idled the bike for, 10, 15 minutes and still nothing showed up in the sight glass. So that was super frustrating, because if you're low on oil, or worse yet, you have no oil, do you really want to be riding your motorcycle for 15 or 20 minutes trying to figure out if it has any oil? I don't think that's a good idea. That's just such a weird decision. And I don't know why it's even designed like that. But I basically just dump in 2 quarts of oil and then check after every session that I have oil, and just pray that, nothing bad happens during the time that I'm riding it. So the other thing that really frustrates me is there's 2 drain plugs on this motorcycle. There's one here and there's one over there. Now, having 2 drain plugs is fine. That's whatever. Just one more bolt, right? But this drain plug is buried right there. And guess what? It's right above the exhaust. And generally you want the engine to be warm so the oil flows out easier, which means you're gonna have to fight that out without scalding yourself on a hot exhaust. So that is not helpful at all. Also, there's a fairly large filter that goes in before the bolt does. So you have to kind of pry that out without burning yourself on the exhaust as well. It's just frustrating. I don't know why they did that. I just wish this was kind of better designed in that regard. The next thing that I don't like about this motorcycle is the transmission. I've had a lot of issues with shifting on the track, and it seems like I'm not the only one. I'll have a lot of false neutrals, and what I mean by that is, I'll be going from, for example, 3rd gear to 4th gear, and the dash will actually say, okay, you're in 4th gear now. But when I go to accelerate, I have nothing. It's just neutral. And it's always a really scary feeling on the track, and I'm always scared about just banging it back into gear, because I've heard that's how you can destroy transmissions. So the shifting is a little clunky, and this is without a quick shifter. I've heard the quick shifter is kind of hit or miss as well, at least the KTM one. And so I just wish the transmission was a little bit better. It's never a fun feeling getting a misshift anywhere, let alone on the track. So that's something that I'm hoping to improve in the future. And finally, this is gonna sound really odd, but it's kind of slow. And now you're gonna say, well, yeah, you bought a 390. Why are you complaining that it's slow? But I didn't realize it's so much slower than its competitors. The Ninja 400 might as well be a 600 compared to this motorcycle, because it's just so much faster. In fact, they don't even race in the same class, which I didn't know when I bought this bike. And even the Yamaha R3 is faster than this motorcycle, which is crazy to me, because this motorcycle supposedly has like 7 more horsepower than the R3. But because this is a single cylinder and the R3 is a twin, that bike just revs a lot higher, has a much more usable power band. And on straights, stock gearing, stock bike versus a stock geared stock R3, that thing will just pull away from me. And I'm not like a super heavy guy. I'm 160 pounds. Yeah, my friends on stock R3s will just start slowly pulling away from me. So it's a little frustrating. And now obviously track days are not races, but I do want to start racing. I would like to try the 350 class, the step below the Ninja 400 class. And yeah, I'm not the most talented rider out there for sure, but this kind of also makes sure that I will never be competitive in any class. So it's a little frustrating. I might try playing with gearing or something, go up a few teeth on the back just to get a little bit more, better acceleration. But yeah, it's a little frustrating. I wish I had known that before buying the bike. I don't think that would have really changed anything, but it was kind of a harsh reality that I had to face when I first started riding on the track and trying to go against friends on R3s. But, those are my only 3 real nitpicks. And one of them is like the power is really nothing at all. And on the street, I don't even think you're gonna run into issues with the power, first of all, or the transmission, because, I'm kind of being hard on it on the track. So, most of the complaints are not really a big deal. If you don't work on your own bike either, then, what I said about working on the bike really doesn't matter either. So I still think it's a great bike. Future plans for this motorcycle obviously are to try and get it ready for racing if I can. That means safety wiring a lot of the bolts here. And then also I'm going to be doing a key delete. So this kill switch will be the on-off button for the dash. So I don't have to worry about ever losing my key or forgetting my key for a track day. I'll also be doing a new top triple and clip-ons, just a little bit more aggressive, and also get rid of the keyhole here, and then keyless gas cap. So yeah, that's kind of what's next for the bike. I think that will kind of keep me happy for a while before I start doing more involved things like suspension and maybe new brakes, stuff like that. Overall, still love the bike a lot, and yeah, if anything changes, I will definitely let you know. So there's my 1-year review on my KTM RC 390. It's been a great bike with only a few nitpicks, but yeah, I'll kind of keep you posted on any new updates. I'll be kind of tearing into the bike over the winter to do some of the valve checks and other maintenance that it needs, and I'll kind of keep you posted on what happens with that. If you made it this far, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.